I want to ask you a question, Eric. Maybe a little bit more of a serious cold open today.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing this podcast?
Because you asked me to.
Okay,
no.
Easy answer.
No.
Moving on.
I did it because I always love talking to you about movies and TV shows and stuff that we're interested in, comic book things. You know, I learn a lot when I talk with you. I think we have good philosophical discussions about it, you know, but I feel like it's just, you know, like you're a really great friend. And so we, you know, I like having that time together with you to talk about these and kind of say, oh, we really love this part, or, oh, this part was stupid, or, you know, like what, you know, so I just enjoy the friendship and the stimulus that comes from us having these conversations, you know, and really kind of getting, you know, just kind of fleshing that stuff out. So that's why I did the podcast, because it was an opportunity for you and I to get together every week and talk about the latest stuff, and hopefully share our opinions and help, you know, other people, I guess, you know, along the way, I guess, or just bring them along for the ride and see who wanted to do that. So, yeah,
I love that. I agree 100%. I'll say that why I'm doing this is all those things you just said. I 100% agree. Like, I love getting together with you every week and talking with you. And, you know, when I was thinking about doing this, I'm like, who can I do this? And it popped in my head, you right away. It was like very obvious. Our chemistry over the course of time has always been spot on, and what's needed for this. And so, but another reason, or another piece of our why is, you know, my whole life I've considered myself a nerd, and I want to be a nerd, and I've never not wanted to be a nerd, and I've never not been a nerd, if that makes any sense. But the world has a different view of nerds, and I want to break that stereotype of what a nerd is, and I want to I want the people to see nerds for who they are, which is great people and fun people, and not just, oh, you like comic books? Ooh, don't want to talk to you, kind of thing. So I want this podcast to eventually be that. And I'm really loving what we're doing so far. And the feedback we get on the show is absolutely heartwarming. We got an email this week from an old buddy of yours that was just, I read it a few times because it reminded me of why we're doing this. And, you know, you asked me, you know, last night what my dad thinks of the show, and with it being Father's Day weekend, it's, you know, kind of an important theme. But a few weeks ago, I was talking to my mom, and I asked Mom if Dad had listened to the episode, and he hadn't yet, but he's like, I need to, because this show is scary good. And I'm not saying this to toot our horn, but that kind of feedback from my dad, who, you know, I think the world of, and it's Father's Day weekend, so I got to give him a shout out. But that kind of feedback, it's all the validation I needed for the show, and that we're doing the right thing with it, and we're doing a great job at it. And,
right,
you know, we're doing this for us to be able to talk the nerdy stuff, but also to give everybody else, you know, a forum or a voice or an avenue for them to join us. And so we wouldn't do this if we didn't have as much support as we have. And so thank you to everybody who tunes in every week. And we're looking forward to what we've got coming up, and we've got a lot planned. And, you know, sometimes I feel like maybe we're not on our A games and these, and we still get a lot of support. So
right.
I love it. And looking forward to doing more with you.
Yeah, it's been great. So, thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Yeah. So big thank you to everybody.
And happy Father's Day.
And happy Father's Day to all the daddies. No, to the dads.
To the dads.
The daddies out there, maybe.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day. If you catch my drift. play that song. Welcome to the party, nerds. It's the Nerd Rundown, where we cover the latest in the nerd world of movies, TV, and more. I'm your host, Aaron Stemple, and with me today is Mike co-pilot Eric Hare. We appreciate you joining us today, and if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at the Nerd Rundown. Like and subscribe on our YouTube channel at the Nerd Rundown, and you can listen to our podcast on all the major podcast services. Before we get started today, I wanted to let you know how blessed we are, as we have a fellow YouTuber in the house today. Not on audio, but she is in the background. Dylan Marie, we've mentioned her and her channel before. Dylan Marie, aka ABB, as some of you may know her. She's taken some time today to make us a commercial and do a little fun photo shoot. So thank you to her for doing this, and we can't wait to see what comes out of it. Again, check out her channel, Get Educated with Dylan Marie, for some fun and educational videos. She's done some great videos on several historical women. They're educational, but also very, very funny. For sure.
Sacagawea was awesome.
Yeah. This or Sacagawea. All the different Sacagawea. All the different pronunciations for it was great.
Yeah.
Now, please make sure your seats and tray tables are in the upright position as we prepare to land on our fantastic Lost-themed island, aka Episode 11, the NRD Initiative. Well, we'll cover the latest on the rundown as usual, and then we'll revisit the most groundbreaking TV show of all time, my favorite show of all time, Lost. And in which we'll discuss the impact the show had, the characters, the themes, the mysteries, along with the unanswered questions. And since, again, it's Father's Day weekend, we'll discuss the daddy issues abound in that show.
And there are many.
We'll finish off with some great Lost-themed questions, too. So looking forward to those. But first, can we get a rundown? Nice. That was a good one.
That was a good one.
First on the rundown, we have some MCU news. So first reactions are very positive to Black Widow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more excited for this. This is long overdue.
Yeah.
It's been delayed a billion times. Some of the first reactions say it's Bond plus Mission Impossible. So how could it go wrong if that's the case and it's under the MCU banner?
Right.
But very excited for the first reactions, and it gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling. So
yeah, for sure.
And I know that our guest today, Dylan Marie, is a huge Black Widow fan too. So I know she's very excited.
Yeah, the trailers have looked awesome, and now they've started to release some additional, like clips and stuff like that kind of show a little bit more than what the trailers even showed.
Yeah,
and so I'm stoked. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
ScarJo's is on the list too, but
always. She's fantastic as Black Widow.
Yep.
This is a little bit of an odd release since it's past where she died.
Right.
Well, the movie takes place before she died. It actually takes place between Civil War and Infinity War. But the movie coming out after she died in Endgame is a little bit odd. But some of the theories are that Florence Pugh, who is the other actress in the movie, Florence Pugh, is getting huge reactions, and she could take over the Black Widow mantle.
Right. That's what I read as well. Was that people are really saying that she's done just a tremendous job in this. So yeah, it sounds like she's going to be kind of taking over. And I loved Black Widow, and again, I think when we first talked about it was in the first Avengers, it was like her and Clint were, they're lesser Avengers, I guess, or whatever. But but that relationship that they had was so great, and they built on that. Over the movies, they built those two relationships into something where, they meant more to the crowd than just than just kind of background players. They definitely were more valuable, and she was amazing. So I think but I really enjoyed that relationship.
Absolutely. They kind of got some flack for being, two spies up against gods and Hulks and super soldiers, but they held their own, and very excited to see where they take the Black Widow mantle from here. And sounds like this movie is going to be a lot of fun. As well in the MCU, we got word that this week Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania started production, and we'll talk a little bit probably more about that in our Loki review, but it's exciting to know that started. I'm very, very excited, especially with what's going on in Loki. Getting no spoilers in the rundown here for Loki, but it's very exciting to see how that may tie in to everything going on.
Right. Yeah, it looks good.
And more Paul Rudd is always a good thing.
Yeah, Paul Rudd. He's so funny.
So next on the rundown, we have some Netflix / Ubisoft, which is the gaming company, news. Assassin's Creed live action Netflix show adds Die Hard. We've talked about this guy a couple times. Die Hard and the Fugitive writer Jeb Stewart to the upcoming show.
Who can't write comedy,
but he sure can write action.
But he can, yeah.
And I didn't play the Assassin's Creed games to laugh. So I think that's a great addition to that. And then we got our first look at Sam Fisher in the upcoming animated series Splinter Cell, which was always a very, very fun game to play. Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I loved playing that one.
So that was really cool to see that they're keeping the look of Sam Fisher in the animated series, and it's kind of got that anime style to it, much like what we have for Lord of the Rings, Ride of the Rohirrim. It's going to be in an anime style. Doesn't mean it's going to be like flashing across the screen in animation.
Sure.
But if you've ever seen the Last Airbender show,
right,
which is called Avatar.
Yep.
They changed the name for the movie, but that's an anime style. So it's not like Japanimation, which is an old school term. But anyway, I digress, I should say. So going back to that's exciting. Ubisoft and Netflix have this deal that they're working together to release these shows. The Assassin's Creed movie didn't do very well, the one with Michael Fassbender, and it kind of falls into that whole, has there been a good video game adaptation yet? And we're hoping that with Jeb Stewart coming on to write the show, it doesn't say if he's going to be showrunner or if he's just writing, the story. But I think that's a great start to this being a good adaptation. So we'll see.
Yeah. Thoughts? Yeah. I'm anxious to see it. Yeah, I think the best video game adaptation is actually for a video game that didn't exist, which is Wreck-It Ralph. So that's the best.
Yeah, that's saying something about video game adaptation. So we're still looking for one of those really great ones. We have some coming out that I think have a chance to be good. Uncharted with Tom Holland. Yeah, and Marky Mark. So looking forward to covering that when more of it comes out. We'll have a video game themed episode coming up. I want to bring on our video game specialist for that. He's a big fan of the show. He's actually got a couple questions that he sent in. Nice. He's been on the show many times with those questions. Mr. Big Morg 3000. Yeah, he's my video game muse. So looking forward to bringing him on sometime in the near future. Cool. Anyway. Next on the rundown, we have real quick, the Suicide Squad official runtime came out at 2 hours and 12 minutes. So I think that's a good solid runtime. And of course you have about 10 minutes of credits. So it's really about a solid 2 hour movie. 2 hours. Yep. And they also came out this week that it's neither a sequel nor a reboot. And honestly, that just sounds like James Gunn humor. Yeah. So I can't wait for this movie. The trailers have really impressed me, and I'm actually excited for a DC movie for a change and bringing DC to the house today. So looking forward to Suicide Squad. Well, it only makes the world better. Great point. Like, I wish every comic book movie was great, no matter who made it. So,
right.
I thought this superficial war between Marvel and DC that fans seem to want to create doesn't make sense, because if one comic book movie is good, then it helps the next one that comes out.
Right. Yeah. People can't help but compare and stuff. So I think it's just nature, but I think that competition makes people want to push things to make them better and do better things. And to me, that's always, for the most part, always a good thing. So pushing DC to up their game only makes Marvel better too, because Marvel will then push themselves further. So
and they're freaking pushing themselves right now.
They're knocking it out of the park.
They're knocking it out of the park. Loki is so good. I can't wait to talk more about that.
Yep.
So cool to see that. And then next on the rundown, we have more John Wick casting news. Can this movie just come out now?
I know.
As we got Wesley Snipes added to the cast. That's going to be insane to see Wesley Snipes in John Wick 4. And then Hiroki Sanada, man, this guy is on fire right now. He must have a hell of an agent.
Yep.
And so he's been cast, I'm sure, as another assassin.
Yeah.
And looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table in this show.
Yeah.
He was also in Lost.
He was. Yeah. You're right.
And you know what? I didn't even mention this. Big part of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Evangeline Lilly plays Kate.
Yep.
In Lost. So we've got
one of the big three.
Yeah, one of the big three there. So we've got some Lost tie-ins to our Lost theme episode through our rundown.
Yep.
Pretty cool. I'm excited to see John Wick 4. That's all. There's not much to talk about, but it's cool to see those two added. I don't like necessarily running the same story, consecutive weeks in a row, but when you get big names added to a big movie like this, we've got to mention it and we got to help get you excited for it. So,
well, and comic book wise, Wesley Snipes is legend in the Marvel, the Marvel cinematic. I don't know necessarily the Marvel cinematic universe, but he, to me, he really is the godfather of the Marvel movies, because he was the first one that he was the first comic, at least in my opinion, the first comic book movie that wasn't a joke and was pretty great. And we've talked about it before, but Blade really was the first of the great comic book movies, and they did a great job. And it was, it was not hokey. It was not tongue in cheek.
Yep.
And then finishes up with one of the best one-liners ever, where he says some MFers are always trying to ice skate uphill. That's
that is a good one.
Wesley Snipes, man. He just is he's just the best, and
he's so good.
I think more. In fact, I was watching. We were talking about putting movies on in the background and stuff. The other night, I was filling out some paperwork and doing some stuff, and so I just wanted something on in the background, and I turned Demolition Man on with him and Steve or Sylvester Stallone.
Yep,
so it's just a great one. So
my favorite Wesley Snipes reference isn't even from Wesley Snipes. It's from Martin Lawrence in Bad Boys when he kicks the guy in his balls and he goes, Wesley Snipes, passenger 57.
Give me a MF and handy wipe.
I do love the line in Blade Trinity when they're about to go into the warehouse and that guy goes, I can't let you in there, they'll kill me. And Blade grabs him and he goes, Runger, I'll kill you. Yeah. Get in there. Like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
So
great.
Looking forward to that.
Yep.
And next on the rundown, I'm going to let Eric handle this rundown because he's so excited about it.
I am. Season one was good. It was a good start. There were some definite changes. So Star Trek Picard season 2 trailer dropped. So we got kind of a full look at what's coming up this season. We got to look at John Delancey's Q return. And they did a nice job of introducing him as an aged Q, because obviously he's a timeless character and he lives in a different kind of realm than the rest of the universe. So they did a good job of aging him up, and I wouldn't say explaining his aging, but it looks good. So, we got some Jerry Ryan shots of her sans Borg stuff. So
I thought you were going to say clothes. I was like,
you're not that lucky. So
tune in.
Now
Got me.
I'm a huge Star Trek fan now. So yeah. So I mean, Star Trek Picard, I like I said, the first season was good. There were some definite tone changes to the character. There were some plot stuff that didn't really make much sense, but I mean, all in all, it was good. And I always like seeing Patrick Stewart play Picard. So I can't wait for more of that, and seeing the rest of the cast kind of come together. They, Data was in there a little bit. They had Riker. They had Riker, and then they had Troy. They came back, so that was really great. So, which I probably should tell you at some point on air, my story of the time that I met Riker at the Seattle Science Fiction Museum. I'll tell that story another time. But yeah, so yeah, looking forward to it. Season 2.
Man, I can't wait.
Yep. Yeah. Liar.
Tuning in, Jerry Ryan getting naked. I like it. That is our rundown for the week. It was a short week. Sorry, not short week. It was a slow week as far as news goes. If there's something you guys want to hear on the rundown that we're not covering, let us know. We're open to hearing some new rundown ideas.
Right.
So
yeah.
let us know. But that's it for this week. So that's gonna give us some good time to get to the island.
Yes, can't wait.
So let's start with our special segment with what the impact Lost has had on the world. Let's start there. So, like I said early in the show, this is, in my opinion, it's my favorite show, and in my opinion, it's the most groundbreaking TV show of all time because of, since it's aired, TV shows have changed. TV's changed, and in multiple ways that is due to Lost. Number one, and in no particular order, it's changed the way we watch TV. So, for example, when Lost first aired, it was 2004. His first season ran between 2004 and 2005, and it was they had the 22 episode seasons back then. So that was before social media, before people got on the internet and ranted and raved about the previous episode that they watched.
Yep.
However, with Lost, that was the first big show where nerds came together and they sought out other nerds to talk about this show, and there was real true fan engagement that drove the show to new heights. Right. You told me a little bit about that last night. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, yes, because coming out of the 90s, people had started to adopt computers and stuff, but they were still pretty expensive. So and so the price of computers had dropped, in the late 90s. It started to drop. So people were starting to adopt the internet more and more, but you still had pretty much a limited, everything was AOL. And so you had the kind of a limited internet that was available to people. But by 2005, things were really starting to open up and people could really interact with each other. This was pre-social media stuff, so before Facebook and all that. I think, was even MySpace even a thing at that point?
It was, because I got MySpace when I was in Iraq in 2004. So
yeah,
it was the start of social media.
So we had started to see a social media type stuff, and so it really enabled people to start to interact with each other. But for me personally, I started to seek out, after I started watching it, I started to seek out other people. I was like, I'd always float out there. Oh, I watched Lost, and so whenever anybody around me at work or whatever would be, anybody, hello. It was cool because the show always had these bonkers ideas, not to the point where, I've got two twins sleeping with each other, but but just some weird stuff, like
Game of Thrones.
the polar, yeah, exactly. The polar bear on the island, and the smoke monster, all of a sudden they're sitting on the beach, and so it was like, okay,
night, that smoke monster came through, and it's just like you're watching the show and you're like, is this a dinosaur? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, the trees are moving and all this different stuff, but that first pilot episode was crazy because you were like, oh, okay, it's a plane crash, and now these people got to try and survive on this island. And then at the end of the episode, all of a sudden the trees start moving and you hear this noise and you're like, what is going on? And the show never let up on that, what is going on, from that time forward. So it was it required, at least I felt that it required interaction with other people, with other nerds, other people who were watching the show, because you were like, man, what the heck is going on? Like, what do you think these others are? What do you think the hatch is about? What do you think all these different things? So
all the mystery boxes that get opened in the show, you can't help it but like talk about it with other nerds or even other people, maybe.
To help flesh out ideas and all that stuff. And how many theories don't turn out to work,
Right. And so I was late to the Lost game. I didn't start till 2009, which was one of the biggest regrets of my life. I wish I could have watched it from the beginning and got the whole thing.
I was a little bit ahead of you. But
I in 2006 Heroes came out, and that show was huge, and so those two shows competed against each other. And I did that with Heroes. I went on online forums and I chatted about Heroes with other nerds. Brett and I, after Heroes Monday night, we'd call each other and be like, So it was Lost started that fan engagement. And now you watch TV shows all the time, and every TV show has a hashtag in the bottom right corner or whatever to drive that fan engagement. So thank you to Lost for that. Another way Lost really impacted TV watching is the nonlinear storytelling, which was you had kind of the Law and Order specials, week to week stories. This was the kind of the first show that had, long running story arcs, and not to say other shows didn't have that. They'd have it, Friends had it, but it was not like Lost. Lost was the first one to do that long story form telling. And with the flashbacks, what that did was it added the characters it added depth to the characters. And the best example of that is Sawyer. When we first meet Sawyer, he's fighting Saeed because he thought Saeed crashed the plane because he's brown. He's from Iraq.
Right. Yeah.
He's pillaging stuff off of dead bodies. He stole a gun off the marshal.
You're talking about like, Sawyer took all this stuff, not
that's what I said.
Saeed. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So this is our first impression of Sawyer.
Right. Yeah.
And so we think he's this dirtbag, and this is why a lot of people were Team Jack in the beginning. And
yeah, of course.
Then you see his flashbacks, and you start empathizing with him because, as a kid, his parents' marriage was ruined due to a con man.
Right.
There was a murder suicide with his mother. He became the con man that ruined his life, basically.
Right.
And so you start to really empathize with him through those flashbacks, and it adds that depth to the character. And we hadn't seen that in TV yet. And it was, usually you start a show and you take those characters and you build from there.
Right.
And that was crazy. And then what the flashbacks led to was maybe the greatest twist in any TV show ever, or at least maybe one of the biggest WTF moments, when you think you're watching flashbacks and all of a sudden you realize you're watching a flash forward.
Right.
In the season 3 finale. And that was one of those moments in my life that was just like, I'll remember this moment for the rest of my life. It's like the president got shot. You always know where you are when the president got shot or something.
Right.
And so that was really incredible to watch, and not have it ruined for you. But just one of the best twists ever. Anyway, so that non-linear storytelling was
in a non-complicated way.
In a non-complicated way, right? Yeah.
I mean, it didn't require you to really put a lot of effort in on
Right.
your part. You know, they told it easily and very clearly. Hey, you're seeing something from a different time. You know, obviously they're not on the island, so you're seeing a different time. But then when they introduced the flash forward, again, it was a jolt, but you caught on very quickly. You know.
Yeah, you're like, whoa, this is cool. Okay, where's this going? And then from there, they did flash forwards, and then they did flash sideways.
Yeah.
And that's when it really, like, I just remember watching that final season and having my mind blown that they were doing that. So that was really incredible. The impact. So that's the impact. Listen, we're going to talk about Lost probably a billion times on this show.
Yes.
Hopefully, at least.
Yep.
And we're never going to get to everything we want to about this show in this short amount of time.
Yeah.
So let's drive fan engagement with you guys. Like, if you guys think that there's more ways that the show has impacted the world, let us know. And we'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And so I want to get to the story, because when you think about the story of Lost, it's an expansive story, but it's not even the most important part of the show. It's, you know, the story is the survival of the Oceanic 815 flight, the plane that crashed on the island.
Yeah.
And then it just expands from there. Like, you've got so many other parts of the show that are part of the story, and it's one of the most comprehensive stories ever told. And it led to maybe to a little bit of its downfall, because what it did is you had to watch every episode. And back then, 22 episodes a season, you might miss an episode. And if you missed an episode, you were lost, literally.
Yeah.
And so and back then, it's not like if you missed it, you can just go on streaming services and find it and watch it.
Right.
You'd have to wait till like 8 months later when the DVD set came out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think TiVos were a thing at that point, but I think that was very rare. But they were pretty expensive, and you know, I mean, you had DVRs and stuff. I think the very early renditions of the DVRs and stuff, or you know, people were still rocking the VHS. But yeah, I mean, the show, the pilot episode comes right out of the gate and just punches you in the face with this. You know, all of a sudden you wake up on a beach, and you know, the eye opens, you know, and the pupil expands, and then you have this amazing, you know, beach scene where Jack is going from one injured person to a next, and you're like, what the heck is going on, you know? And so it just immediately grabs you and kind of shakes you awake, and then as you slowly get to meet new and, you know, more and more characters, it was just amazing. It really was. So
if you think about that opening scene, and you think about, okay, this is going to be like a survival show,
right? Yeah,
and it is for sure is.
Yeah,
but it's so much more than that, and that's where it's like really hard to get people into the show who have never watched it. They're like, oh, it's just, I'll watch Survivor instead. It's like, first of all, it's not even close to that, right? And sure, there's some wacky things about it, but you understand why there are some wacky things about it, and it's just, but people, you know, didn't. It was a huge show. I mean, it was 20 million viewers its first season, an episode, but there's still a lot of people out there like, I don't need to watch Lost. That's dumb, right? I try to get everybody I can into it. In fact, I've tried to make deals with my sister-in-law. I'm like, I'll watch anything you want if you watch Lost. Like, I promise I'll watch Out of Africa, right? You know, if you watch Lost. So it's just a story that's, you get so immersed in, and I love it. And along with that story, you know, you have themes, right? So there's no time to cover all of the themes that get covered in the show, but the big ones we have are, you know, right off the bat in the pilot episode, you have Locke talking to Walt about two sides, one dark, one light. And that theme plays all the way to the final episode.
Yes.
And incredible job by the storytellers to keep that theme prevalent throughout the entire story and keep it engaging.
Yes.
You had faith versus science.
Yes.
You had a man of faith in John Locke, and you had a man of science in Jack
Shepherd. Yep.
And the way that they contrasted those two characters throughout the show was incredible, all the way to the end.
Yes.
You had time travel, you had life and death, you had dreams, you had sci-fi elements, tons and tons of great themes. What was your favorite theme that you had from the show?
Easily the man of faith versus the man of science.
Yeah.
So because the duality of man that exists inside all of us, and especially myself, I could see that, because there always is this split between faith in something more, and then also the science behind how things, because my curiosity, the IT person in me always wants to know how's that work, like I always want to know the nuts and bolts of it. And I mean, I may not have the full engineering level details, but if it'll make sense to me after a little bit. So,
sure.
But I still have my faith in God and stuff. And so to me, it was really interesting. It was a very cool line that went through the entire series. I loved the time travel bit when they got there. I thought that was fun. I think time travel stuff is always fun, but and I think, I don't know that it's necessarily a theme, or it's just how the story's unfolded, but I loved how much they continue to dig into the individual characters and bring out more of each one, because you really got to see just how bad how bad and broken some of these people really are, and how they got to where they got. And so each of them has this drama or this hurt or this pain, and that plays again all the way to the end episode. The finale of the show really shows you how all these broken people came together because they needed to, and
we'll get to the characters and we'll get to the end. I want to stick with the theme real quick. Because one analogy that I like to use is, so you had, again, Jack the man of science, who's a doctor. You had John Locke, the man of faith. John was paralyzed before he got to the island, and he could walk once he got on the island, he was healed.
Right.
And so a man of faith, that just like it increased his faith and his drive to be like, okay, we're in a special place.
Right.
And maybe even for a short time, he thought he might have been dead and was in heaven. And one of the most powerful scenes, and we'll get to some of the best scenes in Lost, when he burned his wheelchair. It's a powerful moment in the show. And the music by Michael Giacchino is incredible. So, but that duality between those two, they flip somewhat, and you see it at finally in the end when Jack is pushing everybody to go back to the island. He's like, we were meant to go, we were meant to be there. I need to find my purpose, and his purpose is he's the one who takes over for Jacob at the end. Even if it's for a short time, he saves the world.
Right.
And so he learns his faith, or he learns to have faith. And I like to liken that to Tony Stark and Steve Rogers in the MCU. In the first Avengers movie, they get into a little battle, and Steve says, "You're not the kind of guy who would lay down on the wire to make the sacrifice." And Tony says, everything special about you came out of a bottle.
Right.
Well, it turns out not true. Steve Rogers is worthy enough to lift Mjolnir, and Tony Stark makes the ultimate sacrifice and saves the entire universe from Thanos by doing his snap. So I like that kind of reversal of roles. Yeah. And proving each other wrong in a way.
Right.
So let's talk about characters, because at the heart of the show, I mean, the mystery box stuff is great. The themes are great. Everything is great. But what makes this show is the characters. So you have Jack, the main character. He's kind of our hero of the show, and he has an incredible arc where he has his fall from grace and he returns to glory at the end. Right. You have Kate, who starts off, you think she's like this kind of
Jack Shepherd, played by Matthew Fox.
Yep, Matthew Fox at Party of Five.
Right.
And then you have Evangeline Lilly as Kate.
Yep.
Who, this was her first big role.
Yes.
She started out, you would think she was kind of a damsel in distress, and then you find out she's a felon and was arrested and was in handcuffs on the plane. And so she's got an incredible backstory to tell. Right. You have Sawyer, who we kind of covered. One of the early favorites, Charlie, who was played by Dominic Monaghan from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Great character. In fact, he was the drug addict on the show. Yep. My personal favorite character, you had Desmond Hume. He was the guy who, man, what a backstory he had. And when he got to the island, he's the reason the plane crashed. Yeah. So it turns out that he's the reason the plane crashed, and then he's also the reason he helped Jack put the cork back in the hole and help save the universe. So he redeems himself there too. You had Hurley, who was the big guy. Yeah, Jorge Garcia. He was a good comic relief with Charlie. He was great. You had a great relationship between Jen and Sun. You had Saeed, so this, again, it aired in 2004, which was 1 year after we invaded Iraq. Right, yeah. And he was a part of the Iraqi army in that show. So that was really gutsy, because as you probably would surmise, that there was not a lot of love for Iraqis at that time. Right. And so to make a main character, that part of that Iraqi guard was incredible. And then you had John Locke, who, if you want to say he was the anti-hero of the show, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong term, but he was incredible in the early beginnings. He was so good as the man of faith, and I love that scene when they first watch the Dharma video, and when they get into the hatch. Yeah. And they watch it, and it ends, and he goes, "We're going to need to watch that again." Right. Because again, his faith he believed they were meant to be there, and they were meant to do great things. And, it didn't turn out so well from him because the Man in Black took over his body. And, maybe it turned out that his character it didn't turn out so great for his character, is what I should say. Yeah. But Terry O'Quinn was magnificent. Yeah. Magnificent. In fact, he was kind of the early favorite for most people in that first season because he was so good. And he found the hatch, and, just that purpose he had, I've got a purpose. I'm here for a reason. It kept people going. Yeah. And then Richard was another main character that we should mention. Lots of main characters, but Richard, the ageless beauty. Man with the impossibly dark eyelashes. Yeah, it looks like he's always wearing makeup. It does, yeah. So he crashed on the island. He was played by Nestor Carbonell. Nestor Carbonell, that's his name. He crashed on the island. He brought the Black Rock, the pirate ship that they seek out in the finale of season 1. Yep. So he was there from the early, mid 1800s, and Jacob imbued him with immortality and agelessness and beautiful eyelashes. Yes. But he was always a great great character because you never exactly knew, like, there was always just a bit of mystery to him. And obviously him being ageless was like, what the heck's going on with this guy? So
right.
Those are the big main characters. And out of that group, who would you say is your favorite?
Easily Terry O'Quinn's John Locke. Although I will say that did shift later on to Sawyer.
Yeah.
As my favorite.
Yep.
His relationship with Elizabeth Mitchell's character was Juliet was really great. You know, when they flashed back in time and he becomes LaFleur. You know, he really, his character arc for me, because you kind of have to parse John Locke's character into two separate segments. You have John Locke, and then you have the Man in Black,
right?
And they're not the same person. No. Even though it's the same actor, it's not the same person. And but you don't know that. You know, you don't really know that until much later.
In season 5.
Yeah, and so with that, I would have to say that probably overall Josh Holloway's Sawyer character is my favorite because of his arc is so much greater than that of any of the other characters. Even Matthew Fox's John, you know, Jack has a really good one. Evangeline Lilly's character is really good.
Right.
You know, Sun and Jin, who doesn't love them? Like, how can you not love that wonderful couple, and especially where they came from and how they go. And again, how much depth goes into these characters, and you really get to see how broken they are and why they're broken, you know? And so, but the other guy that has a wonderful arc is Michael Emerson's, you know,
I skipped him because I wanted him to have his own little section here.
Yeah. So I Michael Emerson's, Benjamin Linus. Yeah. So again, a character whose arc moves through the entire movie, through the entire series. That's just, and originally wasn't even
a main character.
He was only supposed to be in like three or so episodes. I think 3 to 6 episodes originally. And his chemistry with Terry O'Quinn was so great.
So good
that they were like, nope, we got to figure out something. We got to do something with him. And
he was always 3 steps ahead.
Oh my gosh.
It's incredible. And he, you know, he's just like, I mean, he gets his ass kicked 17 times throughout the show. I mean,
gets beat up all the time.
It feels like he's always got cuts on his face.
Yeah.
So he's not an imposing figure, but he's the smartest guy.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah.
And he's always way ahead. He's the leader of the others. And he's kind of another man of faith in the fact that he thinks he's on the island for a reason.
Right. Yep.
And he eventually,
he's there to protect the island.
Right. He's there to protect the island, and he eventually becomes Hurley's right-hand man at the very end when Hurley becomes the protector of the island.
Yeah.
And he, in the church at the end, he doesn't get to go in with them, but he does have his moment of like, okay, I'm good now, because Hurley turns around and he goes, "You were a great second-hand man," or what? Right-hand man.
Yep.
And second in command or something like that.
Right.
So he was creepy. He was conniving, cunning. I mean, his character deserves his own spot, and maybe one of the top 5 TV villains of all time.
Yep.
So great job by Michael Emerson in that role.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the mysteries.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of mysteries. And I could name like 70,000 mysteries.
Right.
And I was watching a TED Talk of J.J. Abrams one time, and he talked about how he figured out that the mystery box is more important than the story, because the mystery box is what keeps people coming back for more.
Yeah.
And that's true. And eventually you need some story. You need to answer some of those questions or else you just have terrible, fan reaction to it where they just get mad that there's no answers.
Yeah.
And there are the show answered a lot more questions than you think it did.
Right.
And we could, I could go down the list. Obviously, I'm not going to because it's so long. But it's that was one obvious. That's the first one. 50 minutes in. Lulled you to sleep on it. Lulled you to sleep. So it was where was it? Mystery box.
Mystery box. Yeah.
There was a lot that were that people think that they left unanswered, and there was actually a 20-minute short that came out a few months after that did answer, like, where's the shipments coming from from the Dharma Initiative.
Hofstraller.
Yeah. So, but the mysteries were incredible, and like we talked about in the premiere, at the very end, you had the smoke monster, which you didn't see the smoke monster in the was it the first night they were on the beach? I think. So I don't.
You just saw the trees move. You heard it.
And you heard it. You couldn't see it, right?
Yeah, right.
But you heard that smoke monster noise, and you're like, "Wow, what kind of wow?
Yeah, wow,
wow. What kind of show am I watching?"
Right.
And so the smoke monster was a big mystery. That turns out that was just the Man in Black's other form that he could take. Like the Man in Black is the personification of evil. Because that was another theme, is that it's like the two sides of the black and the white,
right? Good
versus evil.
Yep.
Kind of like what every show comes down to. But
right.
The smoke monster was a great mystery, and one of the best scenes that's not even on the list later on is when Mr. Echo stares down the smoke monster.
Mr. Echo, yeah.
Short rest. R.I.P. dude. R.I.P. Mr. Echo. That guy.
He was great.
Needed to be on the show more. But the Dharma Initiative was an incredible mystery for a short time, and they really delved into that in season 4 when they traveled back in time, and you got to see why there's polar bears on the island, why is there shipments coming in, what are these things, and it was really cool to go back in time and see how the Dharma Initiative really shaped the show,
right,
and added to the mystery.
Yes.
The others, in the first season, the others were, man, they were creepy
for sure.
Holy cow. You remember Ethan, he was a creepy dude. He was the guy who infiltrated
right
the survivors.
Yep.
And I think he actually ended up hanging Charlie, and Charlie got rescued obviously, but
right.
The others were creepy, and when they finally kind of revealed them, it was awesome scene where they light the flames up.
Yeah.
And they realize they're surrounded. The whispers were another thing that was kind of just the dead people on the island.
Right.
I mean, the hatch was so cool because in the first season they don't reveal the hatch.
Right.
And you're like, what is in the hatch? What is it? I want to know. And finally you get into the hatch in season 2, and hatch life in season 2 is incredible. And then it doesn't last. Thankfully, I'm glad that, they made it so that hatch life doesn't last, because it made them comfortable and stuff.
Yep.
So the hatch, oh my gosh, what are some of the other mysteries? Lots of them.
Yeah.
What did you think about the mysteries in the show?
No, it's a great, JJ's right. It helps move the story along. It keeps people riveted. It keeps people glued. They can't be too preposterous. They have to be somewhat believable,
You mean an island can move itself?
Right. When you start moving into that realm, it becomes people. It becomes challenging for people to really go to there. But is the possibility that there are other people on the island? Oh yeah. That how, that can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, there's all of a sudden we discovered that there's this hatch in the middle of the thing and we can't get into it.
Right.
Okay. That's a believable one. You can go into that. And all these other mysteries on the island, you could see that the polar bears, the what's that noise of that, what's that thing moving through there, and so when you have some of these things where you're like, oh, okay, I can get behind that, there's a rational explanation, but when you first see it, you're like, what the heck is going on? Like, where does that come from? And so it drives the attraction to the show, and it drives your interest in the show, which then allows you to tell good stories, and then you build your characters around that as well. So, I mean, brilliant storytelling, and using the mysteries, using the mystery box as a tool, as a weapon to move the plot forward is pretty effective. So,
and I think that leads into the next point is the faults of Lost.
Yeah,
is it did get to be like too complicated.
It got pretty convoluted in certain times.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
when you see an island move, nerds are gonna be like, whoa, cool.
Yeah, right.
But like general audience are gonna be like, what the?
Right.
So
yeah, nerdy people, and we all know who we're talking about, like nerdy people are going to look at that, and they can suspend belief in something like that and be like, or suspend reality, I should say, and be like, oh, okay, cool. The island moves. That sounds cool. It's all supernatural anyhow. So I can totally believe in that, but a lot of but the average person who's like, drinking beer and watching football and all that other stuff, they're gonna be like, you're telling me that the island gets up and moves. You know what? I'm done. Thanks. Like you've gone too far. And so,
exactly. They do a good enough job adding in tons of mysteries before the island moved.
Right.
But I can see why when the island moved, people were like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because that's too far.
Yeah.
Suspension of disbelief is definitely needed in these kind of shows, and people have a tough time with it.
Yeah.
So
the other fault I think could be, and I don't feel this way, but there's a lot of ambiguity about the ending of the series, the series finale. I think you and I have had multiple conversations about the ending of the series and how much we loved it, but there's a lot of people at the end of it that were like,
we have a point on the end.
Yeah.
That we'll get to.
Yeah. But I just think from a fault perspective, we could maybe wrap it in there and say, it could be a fault is that the ending is a little convoluted or a little challenging for some folks, but
for sure.
But yeah, I thought the only other fault that I thought maybe with the show is how many people were actually on the island and survived the airplane, crash, because it's like, okay, well, who actually died in this airplane? Because there's not an endless supply of people flying on this airplane. And so, but as the series goes on, they continually add in these, what I refer to as red shirts, like Star Trek red shirts, where that guy's not going to make it by the end of the episode, So, like what's the episode? Maybe we'll talk about it later, and I can't remember, but no, I don't think we do. The episode with Paolo.
Well, so that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, there was 2 episodes in Lost. If you're going through the rewatch or watching it for the first time,
right,
there's literally 2 episodes you can skip, and the rest you have to watch.
Right.
Yeah. You can skip the Paolo. What's the girl's name?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Who cares? Because it was terrible episode. Paolo and his sister lover.
Right.
And then the Jack tattoo episode.
Yes, the Jack tattoo was the worst.
I don't know what was worse. They were so bad. Those were 2 really bad episodes of Lost where they lost their mind for a short time.
Yeah.
So
Nikki Fernandez.
Nikki and Paolo.
Yep.
Nikki Fernandez, and she's like this blonde, like as white as you and blonde.
Yeah, right.
Blonder.
Right.
So,
yep.
So
and I'm pretty white.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Gonna make a comment.
I'm almost transparent. It's translucent. There's a translucence to being a redhead.
That's your superhero powers. You're translucent.
You can actually see through them if you hold the light up behind them. It makes it great for X-rays because I don't have to, doctors like just hold this light up behind him. I'll take a look
and see what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
So that's the faults of Lost is, it gets a little overcomplicated, convoluted, and there's 2 episodes that you can just skip all together.
Yeah.
Best moments in the show. I found a really good list. This is one of those lists where it's like, it's relative to the person. You're not going to be able to fit because there's so many scenes. You're not going to be able to fit everything in a top 10 list.
Yeah.
But this is the best list I found. And I took one of or a couple of theirs out and I put what I thought were better scenes. So counting down. Number 10. The breakfast scene with Ben Linus, who at the time was Henry Gale.
Yeah.
I'm doing air quotes. Breakfast scene with John Locke, Jack, and Henry Gale. And it was like one of the first moments where you saw Ben Linus. He was behind enemy lines. And you just saw how he's in control, even though he's the prisoner. And you can just tell he's 3 steps ahead of him in that scene.
Yeah.
It was a great scene to build off of for Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I agree. And the Henry Gale character and Terry O'Quinn's character, because the eagerness of Terry O'Quinn to want
to learn more
and to be a part of the island, to be a part of the mythology of the island and all that stuff. Ben, this was like manna from heaven for him, because this is like, I can manipulate this guy all day long and he is gonna eat it up.
That's a great point.
He's an easy mark.
Yeah. And Terry Quinn plays that scene so well because he just sits there and he listens, and he could tell he got in that scene, but he plays it pretty cool, but you could tell Ben's in control there, even though he's the prisoner.
Yep. All
right, number 9, it's called Already Happened. This is where Hurley and Miles are discussing how time travel works in the show.
Right.
And we don't know how time travel works because we don't know how to time travel.
Right.
So every version of time travel is a little bit different. We're seeing some really crazy time travel in Loki and the MCU. Back to the Future is kind of the standard rules for time travel, is how we always have thought it's worked. But it explains it in a way where it already happened, in a way of, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to think of an example now. Of course I can't, in the show of it already happened. I'm drawing a blank. I can link out the scene to it on our Twitter so you can watch it. It was one of those, when you're watching it, you're like, your brain's kind of breaking, and then you understand how time travel works in the show, and they stick to the rules pretty good. Time travel is always sticky, so it's hard to really make it make sense,
right,
in an easy way. But it was a really great scene between Miles and Hurley. Number 8, Michael kills Ana Lucia and Libby. Two of my least favorite characters in the show, Michael and Ana Lucia.
Oh yeah.
But this was one of those WTF moments where I didn't expect.
Yeah, I didn't see it
happen.
coming. Yeah, didn't see it coming.
And especially when he killed Libby, and that was like,
that one was heartbreaking.
Hurley's, first love and only love, and it was a heartbreaking scene. And I forget, Michael gets sent off the island, I feel like, after that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it was a big WTF moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael and his son Walt are another kind of mystery box, if you will. Like it just felt like there was more to Walt and more to Michael.
Well, the story behind that, and we got a fan question about this.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Well, I'll just answer it now because I didn't put it on the list.
Oh, okay.
It's not as, it's not as fun of a story, but it's the actor that played Walt hit a giant growth spurt, and it just, they couldn't figure out a way to write that into the show. In a show with a smoke monster and time travel, you couldn't figure out, like, maybe he ate something and he grew 7 inches, but
right.
It was one of those things that, okay, the actor grew 7 inches or whatever and looks like an adult now, and we don't know what to do, and we'll just write him off the show.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it seemed like Walt was special.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I guess you recast, but they just decided not to recast, and they're just going a different direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So then the number 7 is Desmond in the Hatch. So at the end of season 1, they blow open the hatch, and it's how they close out the season. You can see Locke and Jack looking down into a dark hole, and we're left with that until the next season. When they open up the season, you don't know this is what the hatch is, and then they show Desmond going through his like morning routine, and then a big loud explosion, and he gets the telescope and he can see through mirrors up through the hatch that Locke and Jack are now looking down the hatch. And
right.
Really cool scene and introduction to the hatch life and how different hatch, because Desmond was down in the hatch for all of season 1 and we didn't know about it.
Right.
So that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I love Desmond. He's a great character, and how they introduce that character and how they tell that story is really, really great. So,
yeah, we'll talk a little more Desmond here coming up because he's my favorite character. Yeah. Number 5, and this is where it gets into like heavy stuff. Number 5, Sawyer tells Jack about his dad. So there's another big theme of the show is 6 degrees of separation, and I'll explain why that is in a fan question later on. 6 degrees of separation. Jack's dad, Christian, was down in Australia on a bender where that happened to be where Sawyer was on a con job, and they've met up in a bar and they started talking, and Christian started talking about his son. And, the daddy issues abound in this show. Maybe the biggest daddy issue was Jack, because it was the most prevalent in the show. Jack and his dad, Christian, Christian started talking about how proud he is of his son, and how he wish he could be there with him right now and tell him how proud he is and all that stuff. And you could see when Sawyer's telling this to Jack that, because he hasn't said that it's his dad, but Jack knows it is, because once he says his name is Christian, it hits Jack, and it just kills Jack to know that, okay, my dad did love me and he is proud of me, and he didn't get to say goodbye to his dad.
Right.
And that scene is so powerful. Like Sawyer, he's this, again, the perception changed on Sawyer so much more than any other character in the show. And that scene really gave Josh Holloway some incredible room to act his butt off.
Yeah, for sure.
So great job, Josh Holloway on that scene.
Yeah, I really can't overemphasize the range that character moved through the series, from being such a scumbag, really at the very beginning. He really was just a jerk from the very get-go. And then by the end of it, you can't help but love the guy, know, and so it's, I hate typecasting people, and everything, but it's hard to see him in anything else as being somebody other than Sawyer. I see him.
He's been on Yellowstone this last season, and he still had that. You still felt like you're watching Sawyer.
Yeah.
Even though he's a different character.
He had a real brief spot in he had a real quick spot in Mission Impossible.
Yeah, number 4
or whatever it was.
Or maybe 3.
Yeah, I think it was 3 or 4, but he just had a real quick.
I think it was kind of, because that was when Abrams first directed it.
Right. Yeah. So it was very fast, and then I don't think I'd seen him in anything. He did a show. He did a show recently that was actually pretty good, but
futuristic show.
But yeah, I think the other part is, at least for that particular scene, is the actor that played John Terry, who plays Christian Shepherd, is a great character actor, and he plays he does a great job of playing this surgeon guy,
perfectionist,
but who is an alcoholic, an extremely flawed human being, and so he just is amazing. He's really great, and that scene between the two of them is really, really wonderful. So I have no problem with that one being where that one is. So
then so the next one would be Locke revealed in the coffin. So it was like a Chekhov's coffin, for a while. When it was revealed that it was a Locke in the coffin, because it was the scene where they're all on the beach, and Locke, they didn't know Locke was the Man in Black at the time, and the Man in Black was not allowed into the statue with Jacob, and they're out there thinking, okay, it's Locke in the statue with Jacob, and the other group of people came in. I think Ileana, she was hired by Jacob to be like one of the protectors, and she has this like group of mercenaries, and they bring the coffin to the beach, and they drop Locke's body out of the coffin, and you're blown away, because you're like, I thought Locke was in the statue, so who's that? And Richard Alpert says, if that's John Locke, then who's in there with Jacob?
Right.
Because if the Man in Black kills Jacob, then it could be the end of the world. And so that was one of those moments that was like, whoa, crap. Oh, crap.
Right.
So love that scene.
Yep.
And then number 4, not Penny's boat. And as you all know, I have a daughter named Penny. She's not necessarily named after her.
I was going to say
not necessarily.
Right.
Okay. We got the name from Lost.
I remember when you guys were going through names, and you like sent me, you're like, what do you think of Penny? And I was like, dude,
do it.
Yes. 1,000 times yes.
Yeah. Because I love Desmond so much, and his hot wife, Penny Widmore, in the show was such a great name. I just love that name. It wasn't necessarily because I love Boss so much, but we put that name on the list because it was a great name. Yeah. And thank you, Banana, for letting me name Penny. So
it's a wonderful name.
This
she's
scene,
a wonderful child. So.
She's the sweetest thing ever.
She really is.
So this scene is in the greatest finale of all time, season 3 finale. Charlie and Desmond have to swim down to the Looking Glass station to try and get a signal out to what they think is Penny's boat. Yeah. Penny Widmore, Desmond's love, trying to find Desmond. And so they need to go swim down to the Looking Glass. There's a couple others down there that have been jamming radios to get getting messages out. And so they get in there, and what's his name? Mikhail, I think his name was. Mm-hmm. He's the bad guy from Low Down Dirty Shame. Yeah. Smoking like a man. Cool. So he has a grenade on the outside of the station. It blows up a window, and it flood. And leading up to this episode, Desmond had been saving Charlie's life over and over again, because he was. It was, and this is kind of,
it's like a Final Destination.
Yeah, Desmond had been having dreams or flashes of Charlie dying, and she kept saving him. And at some point, it was just going to happen, just like the rules of time travel. Like, it's going to happen at some point because fate will course correct.
Yes.
And at that moment, Charlie probably could have gotten out, closed the door, and maybe, lived another day. But at that time, he knew he needed to make the sacrifice, and it saved Desmond's life. And as the water's filling up in the room, he gets his Sharpie out and he writes, "Not Penny's boat," and he puts his hand up against the window, and we know at that moment Charlie's going to die, and it's like super, super heart-wrenching.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
This episode is just phenomenal. And the look on Desmond's face when he sees the hand that says "Not Penny's boat," it's, first of all, he's dreading watching Charlie die.
Yeah.
And then he realizes it's not Penny's boat. And if it's not Penny's boat, then whose boat is it? It's
right.
like you're like, oh man, what is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just more of the WTF. So great scene there.
Yep. It's one of my favorites for sure.
And then the top 3 are just some of the best TV ever put to screen. Number 3, Don't Tell Me What I Can't Do. John Locke's first episode, I think it was episode 4, season 1.
Yeah.
Walkabout. And
yep.
You didn't know John Locke was paralyzed up until this episode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
And so it's shown that he's trying to go on this walkabout in Australia.
Yeah.
And they won't let him because he's in a wheelchair. And when it pans out and he's in a wheelchair, and he's screaming at the guy like, "Don't tell me what I can't do." So his slogan. And then it it goes back to the island, and it shows John Locke burning his wheelchair.
Yeah.
Like, I just got chills thinking about that scene.
Yeah.
And just the power behind that scene.
Yeah. It was pretty incredible.
The big, like, whoa, John Locke is paralyzed and he's not paralyzed on the island.
Right.
Whoa. What? Okay. Here's another.
Yeah. Because that really deepens the mystery of, okay, well, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And again, you're getting depth into a character that you so far superficially know. I mean, he's really interesting because Terry O'Quinn does a great job of making that character very interesting, and the things that are happening are making him very interesting, and how he reacts to them. The conflict between him and Jack, there's that. He's
a good survivalist on the island.
He's got all the skills. I mean, he has. Do we see the knives?
Yeah,
that's like first episode, right?
Yeah,
first or second episode.
Episodes,
yeah, he has the big box of knives, and you're like, okay, well, what is this nut job doing with all these knives,
Yeah.
And so the
music in that scene is just.
Oh, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michael Giacchino's.
He's such a master.
Yeah, we watched a little while ago. Stacey and I rewatched our wedding video, and I had forgotten, and I don't even know if I told you this or not, but when we were doing the walking, where everybody's kind of doing their seating stuff, and we had music playing in the background, they asked us for a bunch of stuff, and so prior to me walking down, when they were walking, like the parents and things of that nature, I did I had them play there's no place like home from
good one.
from that, because that is my favorite. That is my favorite between that one and track from Michael Giacchino's score on that whole thing.
Yeah.
I think No Place Like Home, that theme, and then
my alarm every morning is The Good Shepherd, which is the like when they go on big treks throughout the island, usually in the the premiere or the season premiere or the season finale,
right?
And it's the or however it goes. That's my alarm, and that's what wakes me up every day. So
let me ask you a question, because we went on a hike when we were in Moab. We went on a hike, and
I would have played that song.
I can't help, every time I go on a hike, in my head I always go.
Yeah. Seriously, that's what wakes me up every morning.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
But that song, in fact, I was playing that for my kids the other day. We were sitting in the car waiting for Stace to get out of the grocery store, and I happened to just be thumbing through my music, and I found I found that soundtrack, and I told, because Amelia's learning how to play the piano and stuff. And so I was like, okay, you got to listen to this song, Amelia. I want you to learn how to play this on the piano. And she's like, I can't play that. And I was like, you can play it, And so we listened to it a couple of times, and it's just such a wonderful
piece of music.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful.
It's incredible.
Yeah, piece of music.
I'm going to move on because we're taking a lot of time on this one.
Yeah.
Because the last two are the best two scenes, and it's just like we got to talk about those. So number 2 on the list is We Have to Go Back, and that's again in the season 3 finale where it's revealed. Talked a little bit about it earlier, so we can move on. But we have to go back. Jack makes a phone call. Meet me at the airport, and you think you're watching a flashback. Maybe it's right before he gets on the Oceana Gate 15, and then it shows him at the airport, and a car pulls up, and then this woman gets out and comes in their light, and it's Kate, and you're like,
yeah,
wait, what?
Yeah,
and he's like, we have to go back, and then you realize it's a flash forward, and it's the first flash forward, and it's just like. Genius storytelling.
Yeah.
Genius twist. Maybe the greatest twist in any TV show I've ever watched.
Yeah.
And then the final one is the best scene in any TV show ever, in my own opinion. In The Constant, season 4, episode 5, Desmond calls Penny, and this is the greatest 60-minute episode of any TV show ever. It's the highest rated Lost episode. It's just one of those incredible episodes that everything hit. And the scene where he calls Penny to unwrap himself from time traveling and anchor himself in time. The music is incredible. You can see Saeed realize when Desmond gets snapped back into back into time, and he's like, Desmond says, I'm on an island, and Saeed like, oh yeah, okay, he's back.
Right.
And it's just the whole episode is incredible, but that scene where they're talking back and forth, and they're like, I love you, I'll never leave you again, or whatever, and
right,
it just gets you every time.
Yeah.
Just incredible storytelling.
Yeah, they do a great job. They really do a good job of keeping you on this emotional roller coaster. Yeah. So honorable mention from me.
Yeah. I was going to ask.
Final episode, Sun and Jin.
So that was on the list. It was like number 8 or 9, and I took that off to put in the Sawyer tells Jack scene. Yeah. But yeah, that scene.
I mean, between that one and Juliet and Sawyer, when Juliet leaves the show.
Oh.
Because Sawyer's come so far.
Yeah.
He's come so far. Yeah. And the two of them.
He finally has like a real life.
He has a real life. He's got a great job. And
you're talking about when she blows up Jughead at the end of season 5, right?
Yeah.
Which is the incident that it's like it happened already.
Right.
Thing kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Great honorable mentions.
Yep. Those are my 2.
Where she's banging on it.
Yes.
She's banging on it.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, did it work? And that was the end of season 5.
Yeah.
So,
but just that tender scene between Juliet and Sawyer as she's saying goodbye to him, and it's just like,
and the way Sawyer's like, better not let go or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Those are really, really good honorable mentions.
Yep.
Actually. Oh man. Good ones. Okay. So many.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So those, send us, if you think we left anything off the list, send us, tweet at us, send us an email, whatever, comment on our YouTube. Like and subscribe. Anyway, last bit on this, I want to talk real quick about the end.
Yes.
Because it's a very polarizing topic. You talk about lost on the internet. There's like this swarm of people who come. One side is, it sucked, it didn't make any sense. And the other side is like, no, it totally made sense. How do you not know what happened? And it's so the final season, season 6 has flashed sideways, and it what those flash sideways is purgatory. It's all of them coming together. The final scene, one of the final scenes, is Christian telling Jack, you guys were together in the most important time of your life. Right. And so you guys created this purgatory to come together once you all pass at different times. You didn't die on the island, or you maybe died on the island, maybe died off the island.
Right.
But as soon as you all have passed, then y'all meet in this purgatory and y'all can go into the light together.
Right.
And
you move on to the next place. And so that confused a lot of people. Maybe a lot of people don't know what purgatory is. Who knows? But it's don't overcomplicate the end. It's really just these people created a purgatory to come together and once they've all passed, and then they can move on to the next stage of their life together. Yeah. That's the simplest way I can put it. Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I think the heartbreaking part for me, and I maybe it shouldn't say heartbreaking, but the fact that Ben has to sit outside and doesn't get to go. Because again, you talk about a redemption of a really bad human being, like a person who did some really awful things.
He murdered. He did a lot of things to protect the island.
Yeah. And well, more for him. And I think that's the thing, is he didn't do them for the island. He did them for himself. And I think that's like, he does them in the name of the island. Yeah. But that's what keeps him out, is that he does them for himself, not because he wants the power of the island. He wants to be the one in charge instead of the island. And Jacob, Jacob doesn't pick him, and that, and his anger and his, so he really has to go. So yeah, I again, a very redemptive effort by Michael Emerson to make.
I think it makes sense though. That
it does.
Outside is just heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and that's the painful thing about it, But I mean, and that last bit with the dog and Jack.
The way
in the bamboo, where you close the show the way you open the show, with the eye closing this time, and I just thought
plane going over.
And I just thought, man, that is
beautiful.
That is so great. That is so great, and I tell you, without a doubt, I was a bubbling, sobbing mess when I watched that episode. I mean, I just was bawling.
A lot of lotion in the eyes.
There were
a lot of lotion in the eyes.
I don't even have a lotion excuse. I was just out and out emotionally a wreck.
It was hard.
Yeah.
So let's wrap that segment up. Let's get to the nerd questions.
Yeah.
While I'm pulling up the nerd questions, I want to make sure you can pull up Big Morg's video question.
Oh, okay, sure. Yep.
So you do that. I'm going to answer my dad sent in a first question into the nerd box. He said, so happy Father's Day, Dad, real quick. Love you. You're the man, my hero. So Dad says, why are there quarantine labels on some of the station doors? Great question, especially since we've been in quarantine for what feels like forever now.
Right.
And so the answer is, if you remember back in one of the, I think it's season 4, maybe 5, either way, Ben Linus actually was part of the Dharma Initiative. And so I think so was Ethan. And back in the 70s, Dharma Initiative and the others, they were 2 separate groups, and they coexisted on the island, even though they didn't want to coexist. And I forget who it was. I think it may have been Widmore, Charles Widmore, Penny's dad, who was one of the big bads. He organized the attack on the Dharma Initiative, where he convinced Ben Linus to gas the entire Dharma Initiative. And of course, gas doesn't go across the entire island, so there's some remnants of the Dharma Initiative, and so the remnants of the Dharma Initiative thought that there was a disease on the island that killed all of their people, and so they went into like, that's why sometimes you saw Desmond or whomever was in the hatch had to put on hazmat suits to go outside because they thought there was a disease out there.
Right.
And so that's why there's quarantine labels on a lot of the stations.
Yeah.
So great question, Dad, because that's a very relevant topic in today's world.
Yeah, right.
The next question comes in from my neighbor, Bryant, who great time for Bryant to send in his first question, because him and I have had some great Lost discussions, and I look forward to having more with him, especially after he listens to this show. And he always gives great feedback. He listens to the episode, and he sends in like a weekly report.
Right.
It's always like, wow, I love that perspective. Thanks, Brian. And so thank you for doing that. But his question is, I'd love to hear or see some kind of explanation on how all of the characters' pre-island lives intersected with each other. So I mentioned it earlier, the 6 degrees of separation theme that really was very prevalent throughout the show. So Jacob, the protector of the island for about 2,000 years, he was looking for a replacement, and he got 360 candidates to get on a plane. And of course, he's not going to show all 360 candidates, but the show showed him touching all of the candidates at some point in their lives, which then fate took over and
designates them. Yeah,
it moved their course. And of course, they're going to intersect with each other at some point in their lives. And it's a simple answer. Is Jacob touched him, and when he touches you, your destiny is now to the island.
Right.
And so you kind of lose free will in that aspect once that happens.
Yeah.
And Jacob chooses people who were like him, kind of broken, nothing left to lose type people.
Yeah.
And you really see that in Jack and Sawyer and Locke, Kate. They all had really broken lives before they got to the island. So
yeah,
pretty simple answer, but definitely, if you don't catch that, I can see why it'd be a little hard to be like, how does all these people's lives intersect before the island?
Yeah, for sure. So yep.
So
no, that's great.
Great question, Bryant.
I think you'd probably have to do some sort of diagram and there'd be some heavy Visio.
Some Charlie from Always Philadelphia, the GIF where he's like theorizing, and he's got this big board. It's like
all over the place.
Yeah, over the place. So
all right. So Morgan.
Yeah, Big Morgan 3000. He's stepping up the video question game, and this isn't Lost theme, but it's so good I had to include it.
Yeah.
And it's well, I'll just let
you see it. Okay.
Yeah, I can see it fine. Right. Look at that handsome face.
Look at that beard.
Look at that. That's a very well shaped beard.
That hair.
Morgan, do you shape your beard, or is that how it grows? And then also, can I have your hair? Because
the hair.
Look at my hair compared to your hair.
Thick.
Maybe we shouldn't do video.
Lush. Yeah. Both those guys have great beards. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
All right, Big Morg, what you got?
Hey, Stump and Eric. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for asking.
I can't
hear
me.
Just living
it's
the
not
dream.
playing on my screen. Want to start it? Let's start it over.
Yeah.
Because now I can see it. Maybe it was just slow.
Let me stop. Just real quick.
I heard him say, "Hey, Stump and Eric."
Yeah.
So if you guys don't know this, my nickname in the Army was Stimp. And actually it was Stimp Diz. Mr. Brett King coined that phrase. And he calls me Diz, and he calls me Stemp, and other people call me Stemp. And so if you ever hear somebody calling me Stemp, just know that you're not allowed to unless you're in the Army or we're associated at that time. JK, I'm joking. You can call me Stemp. Anybody can call me Stemp.
That's funny.
Stemp Diz.
All right, let me see. Try and share this out again.
That's true. Oh,
Find it.
I heard it.
Yeah. Oh, you could hear it that time?
Yeah, but I couldn't see it.
Okay, share screen, and we're going to do Windows Media Player and share sound and optimize for video. Let's see. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, let's try this again.
Hey, Stump and Eric. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for asking. You know me, just living the dream. But I wanted to follow the Brett trend and send in a video question. So my question for you is on the video game side of the nerd world. What's a video game that you played that after you finished it, you just had a moment of, whoa, now that was a game? For me, I'd have to say it was The Last of Us. Something about that story is unlike anything I've ever played before. Excited to hear you guys' answers. Thanks.
That was great.
Dude, Morgan's awesome. Love Morgan.
He's got great questions.
Speaks very well.
Yes.
Like I said, he's my video game muse. We're gonna bring him on as a host at some point.
Yeah,
very soon. Get ready, Morg.
Right.
I'll let you go first.
Trim that beard up. Make it look.
It gets caught on the mic if you don't trim it up.
If you don't, we have to worry about it. So
go first.
Okay. So when I first watched this, I was trying to think to myself, because there's been a few video games through my life that I've just absolutely loved. When I was initially probably my favorite game, of course, was like Super Mario Brothers, growing up and everything. And then when I first was working on the computer, I played a lot of flight simulators. I want to say that Metroid Prime on the GameCube, when I got done with that game, I was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And it took me a long time to get through that. So I would say probably Metroid Prime. Doom has been a theme through my life as well, because I started playing Doom in like the 90s and the Doom like 2013 or 2014, I think the game that came out that they did, when I beat that game, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is, that was amazing. Like I loved it. I loved it. So I would probably say those two, Metroid Prime and then Doom. Yeah.
Good answers. I haven't played it either. But Morgan kind of took my answer because and I'll come up with a different answer now that I've had time to think about it. But it's true. The Last of Us, and I remember when we were all playing it, Morg, kind of around the same time. I've never had so much visceral reaction to certain cut scenes in a game, and there's some cut scenes in that show that you just are or that game where you're just like, oh my God, that just happened in this game. It's incredible story, The Last of Us. So because you said that, Morg, you took my answer. I'll come up with a different answer, and this is more of a recent game. And I replayed it. It's actually, so you came up with two, I'll come up with two, and they're both recent games. Number one, Spider-Man PS4. I loved Spider-Man 2, the video game, back in the day. Played the heck out of that. And so to see a new game come out, a new Spider-Man game come out and be even better than that game was incredible. But the story in it was amazing. And I won't spoil it, but there's somebody that dies in the end, and it hits you hard. And I replayed it recently, and it hit me even harder the second time because I had forgotten about it. And I was like, damn, I forgot about that. And it just hits you really right in the feels. So there's that. And then Brett King bought me Jedi Fallen Order. Oh my God, this game is incredible. And I remember it's the most, probably the game that I've replayed the most in my life. I'm not there's some people who can beat a game and then they play it 17 different times. I'm usually not like that. And I've replayed Fallen Order 4 or 5 times at least. And so very very special that first of all, that Brett bought it for me. That was a very nice gift. And just playing that game, the best Star Wars game. That game is so much fun. And I was very skeptical about it because I'm not a big fan of the main actor in it. The guy who, oh man, what's his name? I don't remember, but he's on Shameless. He played Joker on the Gotham show. So not a big fan of him, but he was really good in it. So surprised me. And sometimes when you keep your expectations low, tends to be easy to blow them out of the water. So great
my life.
great question. Big Morg 3000. That's his gamer tag.
That's awesome.
My main man, Big Morg. So thank you, Morgan, for sending the video question.
Yep.
Looking great as always, and looking forward to more video questions.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan.
Okay, so we're gonna hop off. We're gonna do our Loki review next. But love talking Lost with you, Eric. So much fun. One of the it was the best show of all time. It took a short break at number 2 for me when Game of Thrones was at its peak, and then Game of Thrones shit on itself. So,
right.
Lost was like, I'll take number 1 back.
Right.
And,
happily.
Yeah. And just the most groundbreaking.
I'll just take this thing.
Yeah. It's just the most groundbreaking TV show of all time. And the impact it's had on the world and our lives. It's a show that's been off the air for 10 years and we're still talking about it like it happened yesterday because it's so much fun to talk about.
Yeah. No, it was great. It really was.
So we'll be talking more about Lost here in the future, and definitely you just can't fit it all into one episode, and we're going to need content down the road, and we'll revisit Lost maybe season by season or however we can. But it's not the last time we'll be talking some Lost. So
and send in your stuff on your favorite clips, your favorite emotional moments from Lost. What was your favorite character? What was your favorite scene? That type of stuff, because we're always very interested in that. So
love it. All right, with that being said, people, we will see you next week on the Rundown. Thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe, and thank you to actually, real quick, thank you to not only Dylan Marie for coming in and doing her thing. Can't wait to see what she's got, but also thank you to Erwin AS22 on Fiverr. He has drawn Eric and I in cartoon form, which you'll be seeing on our YouTube thumbnails and maybe popping up here and there every once in a while, but really great job. Erwin AS22 on Fiverr. If you need a cartoon drawing of yourself, check him out on Fiverr.
It's pretty great. Pretty great.
So thank you, Erwin.
All
right, buddy. Let's go do some Loki talk. Can't wait to do that.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right. With that being said, don't watch Loki, our Loki review, until you've watched episode 2 of Loki the Variant. And with that being said, thank you very much.